What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. So this video might get a little long, and if you've seen from the heading, you're gonna see that, well, you want to build an LS powered S10. Well, you could either learn from my mistakes, learn a few things that I've done right and wrong. Might save you a few hundred trips to the junkyard. I'm not rich, so I definitely can't start going through the Summit catalog and start ordering 10 grand worth suspension, $5,000 engine, blah blah blah. But I did build so far, as you can see. It's not done, nowhere near, but it's all pretty much junkyard parts to make somewhat of a not bad truck. So I'm gonna start right from the back, go all the way to the front. Like I said, you can either copy my ideas or not do it. Maybe you did something that worked better than what I did. Either way, if you're thinking of doing this or you already have a truck and you're looking for new ideas, check it out. It might get a little long, so we're gonna start from the back and we'll work our way all the way to the front. So first, I don't know if you can see, but I did a 2005 Blazer rear tank. I did this because A, it was cheap. The tank was 75 bucks. The pump was I think 35 because the guy broke it, so I had to get a different pump. And first thing you're gonna need to know is that the sending unit is different ohms. So what I did to get around that, I basically made one out of 3. This is the pump out of the 05, but the sender is out of a 91, and the arm is out of the original tank because the wire is different. Now it works 0 to 90 ohms for an 82 S10, which is what my truck is. So if you're gonna do this, keep that in mind. Otherwise you can save yourself some time by going to a 91, but then it's a metal tank, and I'm not sure if the pressures are the same. Anyways, the gauge reads proper and the engine runs. So if you're gonna do this route, keep that in mind. You're also gonna need the rear cross member and the front one. Now, it all bolts in almost like factory, except you get a little difference right here, the height of the frame. Now, because the box bolts up here, you're gonna need your space on the bottom. So keep that in mind. It basically bolts in, you weld in these brackets here, both sides. The front welds in like so. I think you take this rivet out. There's your rear conversion 2005 Blazer tank. Now obviously we're gonna have to change the gas door location on the box, and we'll get to that another day because the box is still here. But yeah, keep in mind this truck also has a 2.3 lowering kit. So now what we did is I found the mega rare. People are gonna say it's an 8.5 diff. It comes in the 4.3 standard trucks. This is out of a 2000 S10 with a 4.3. Now you're gonna say, oh well, is it an 8.5? No, it's actually an 8.6. How do I know that? Because I took a center section out of an 07 full-size truck and it fits. The bearings were bigger than the 8.5. Even though the gear set is out of an S10 4x4. And it did have an 8.5 in it. This is an 8.6. So, I can almost guarantee you that this little truck will never blow this diff up. So if you ever come across one of these, you're gonna want it. Now the next thing I'll say about this is that your old school brakes, because the e-brake cables are different, they all fit. You can put in these cables, your old brakes. You need these drums though. Everything fits. The next thing that I did, try and make this thing different, was that I took all the stabilizer bars. I think if it's a ZQ4 or an Extreme. I also went and made it dual horizontal shocks. I don't think you guys can see that. Here's one. There's 2. So hopefully it should handle better. I also took the shackles out of a newer Blazer think you guys can see that. Instead of the old one has a post here, or a stud that always bends, because I'm going to use air shocks on this thing. Now, it's going to change my angles. So instead of being so angled like that, it's going to be here, this way. So, right now, there's just a temporary mocked up drive shaft in there, because your old drive shaft is not going to fit unless you want to stick with the two-piece. So right now, that's just a mocked up, hacked together out of junk, so I could move this thing around. Right now, yeah. So, we're going to move on. Now in the front, we took the front stabilizer bar of the same truck. I think it's a ZQ4 or an Extreme truck will work the same, because it's a 1-inch thick stabilizer bar. We also took the Bilstein shocks out of it, and now we have the correct ratio steering box. It's 12:1. Now the older S10s like 88, 91 extended cabs almost always had the Z box, except they're 14:1. And the crappiest, stockest one is 16:1. So this is a 12:1, so a turn and a quarter, you're gonna have your steering totally turned from off center. So I don't know how that's gonna work because I haven't drove this truck yet, but so far, we basically built junkyard parts into somewhat performance parts. The next thing is that we took steering shaft out of an Astro van. Now, I made this mistake because I listened to guys on YouTube, and they said, go get the Jeep Grand Cherokee steering shaft. So I did, and it didn't work. Why not? This end on the bottom of the box will fit. This end, you'd have to be very dedicated to make that shaft work, because it was nowhere near the same. So what guys made the mistake of is saying great Jeep Grand Cherokee, you need to get the Cherokee one. Now that one will fit, except for the end at the steering shaft is bulky and big, and it has a rubber bushing. So I went with the Astro van one. It's all steel, double U joints. Just about fits in with very few modifications. So what I did is you're going to have to clock the front half that goes under the column about 90 degrees. There's two little tabs in there. You just punch them off or grind them off. Slide the yoke off. Turn it about 90. Put it on. Put some welds. The next thing you're going to want to do, you guys probably can't see it because it's so busy in here, is you're gonna take a little notch. I think you guys can see it, hopefully. Put a notch into your steering shaft of your column, slide it on, you're done. This can be done in an hour, especially since now I told you guys kind of what to do, sort of. Next, the braking. I had a Hydro Boost brake system kicking around out of an 07 new body style 3/4 ton Chev truck. So it actually almost fit in perfect, just about. And why do I say that? Well, first, the two holes here on this side go right in. The one on the top right here goes right in. The only one I had to change was the bottom one here. It was off. So I trimmed the bottom. You guys probably can't see it. No, you can't see it, but when you line it up, you'll see there's a little bit of trimming on the bottom of the bracket. Cut that so it lines up to your cab. Mark your hole. Put your stud in and put some welds on the backside so it welds on. Done. Now you got Hydro Boost brakes. The other thing I had to do is modify the rod, which is from the flat part, 7 inches. So I cut off the old brake booster rod and re-welded them together. The only other thing I had to do is your master fits right on, like it was almost meant to be. except for I had to trim the back part, which is aluminum, so you can just drill bit, shave off like maybe 10 thou, and it fits on perfect. I had the gears going, it locks up good, at least on the stands. Okay, next. Now this was some trial and error with the power steering, because I wanted power steering. If you're gonna use the truck pump, it's not gonna work unless maybe you did your own, you bought aftermarket mounts and your engine's gonna sit super high and super forward. Then they might fit, but then your engine's gonna sit really forward and really high, and it's gonna look dumb, in my opinion. We'll get to the mounts, but we're gonna deal with the power steering. So, how I got around that, and this is where you're gonna have to do a little bit of paying attention. I used, I don't think you guys could see it, but I used a Chev van with an LS power steering pump. Now this is where you're gonna pay a little bit of attention. You're gonna want to shim the pump with 2 3/8 washers, or 3. 2 will work though. Next, what you're gonna need is the pulley, because the pulley hits the box. I think you guys can see it, hopefully. This guy right here. You're gonna find that on, I would say, 07 up Montana vans, Impalas. I don't think they build a Grand Prix anymore, but it's got to be like 07 up. Now there's 2 versions of this pulley. You can buy it on Summit for like 22 bucks, or you can go out to pick and pull one off really easily. They're not hard to get off as long as you have the tool. And yeah, it's got a star pattern on it, or some of them are flat. But as long as you get it off 07-ish Impala, Montana van, Uplander van, all the same pulley. Now what that's going to do is make your belt shorter, and it's going to flap when it's running. Now what I did to get around that is 2 things. One, you're going to want to take this pulley right here, is off of like a 90-ish Chev truck GMC air conditioning delete. Now that's bigger than the LS truck pulley by 1/2 inch, which is just enough to pick up the slack of the belt. The only other problem you will run into now is doing that is that if you get an aftermarket tensioner, it does not have a notch right here. There's a bump. Whereas the LS truck factory one has a little bump, and now it will hit the pulley. So you either have to shave that off or get an aftermarket pulley tensioner. So, also, since we're in this area anyways, let's talk cooling. So I used, this engine is originally out of an 03 Envoy, 5.3 aluminum block. We'll get to that too, because there's some funky stuff with that I discovered. But the other pump comes out this way. Well, this is off an 07 up Chev truck, where it comes out this way. Now what you're going to want to do, wait, we'll fast forward to one more thing. You're going to want the heavy duty S10 rad. It's not the best rad, but when you're using junkyard parts, you got to work with what you can get. Anyways, once you have that down, you're going to want to use the truck upper rad hose, and it's going to come around. Gonna make this area a little tight. But if you go to Home Depot, you can buy this piece here for like $2, and it joins in here, because you gotta get your angles kind of half right. So now that that's mounted, I went with a 12-inch fan and a 16 fan out of a Mercedes. This one is aftermarket, and this one's out of a Mercedes. Pulls actually a lot of volume. I don't know what, but it pulls air. Sucks harder than the girl down the street. You know what I'm saying, guys? Anyways, let's get back on topic. I also put a power steering cooler in. Fits perfect. Right in the front of the rad support. This is out of a Bronco 2. You can also get them out of Aerostars. I actually think the Aerostar one's a little bigger if you really need the cooling. Also, use the Super Duty power steering reservoir. That worked pretty good. 92-ish Ford truck fuse box. Lots of relays, lots of fuses. That's good to go. I also used an S10 Blazer alternator because it only has the one wire hookup instead of the truck one's got 4. Still works, but this is easier to hook up, so I went for easier. Yeah. Other than that, guys, the next thing, yeah, let's get on topic of the Trailblazer engine. Now, right now it's got the truck dipstick, but I'm telling you guys, if you're gonna use a Trailblazer engine, which are a little bit easier to find than like trucks, obviously Corvettes and Camaros and stuff, there is no hole in the block for the dipstick. There is a flat spot, and you're gonna want to use a 3/8 drill bit to drill straight down. So make sure you haven't been drinking and you got straight eyes on, and you're gonna drill same angle as the mount. It's flat at an angle. Well, yeah, not an angle, I guess. About 45. You're gonna want to drill straight down and make sure that everything gets cleaned out. And if you still have the old pan on, you're going to be changing the pan anyways, trust me. Which brings me to the next thing, is the pan. Now, I use an 07 Up truck pan because it's flatter. Now what I did is I sectioned, I think I went over this in one of my other videos, but we'll go over it again just in case, since you guys are watching. I took 1.5 inches out of it, and I also put a 90 into it in the front. I probably didn't need to do the 90 because it's still cleared, but definitely you have to section it out or it's going to hang about 1.5 inches, 2 inches down below the cross member, and you're just asking to wipe it out. I also, because I'm stubborn, I wanted the oil cooler, so I put a Mercedes-Benz oil cooler in. I think you guys can see it, hopefully. Now it only could go on the front because that's the only place I had room for it. The swap S10 headers did fit for an LS, but they did not fit if you want to use the oil cooler lines. Most guys don't, but I did. And what did still fit is I used F-body manifolds. Probably can't see them, but they're there, both sides. I also took the old LS truck mount right here, mounted it, but I cut it, and I used the old 2.8 mounts, and I blended them together to make one mount. Cheap, free, took a little labor, but cheap and free. So that's how we built it. The next thing is I originally mocked this up with a 91 S10 NV3500. Now, the engine is pretty much within, I can get my hand back here, my fingers, so it's about as close as you can get. Now I massaged the hump of the tranny hump to make it fit. I also massaged a piece right over here. It did fit, but I wanted it to be a little more clear and look a little roomful, I guess you could say. You didn't have to do it, but I did. So, the next thing I did, getting into the tranny, is it's a 2000 NV3500. Keep in mind, not the 91 now, which actually pushes the cross member back, and actually, we'll go look at that, because there's some explaining to do there too. I don't know if you guys can see, we'll be able to see in here, but I'll explain it all. And obviously, if you guys have questions, I'll answer them. But the new 2000 tranny, let's see if we can show you guys this. think you guys can see right here, pushes the cross member back about 1 inch. So I re-drilled the 2 holes exactly, match the old ones. And on this side, now you only use the back hole. I don't know if you guys can see that. Now it uses the back hole. The other thing you're going to want to do, using the new 2000 NV3500, is this mount. See right here? You're going to want to flip it around because it's offset, not centered. So you flip it around, so now the stud moves forward. Okay? This is also my Horky exhaust. So far, only comes up to the middle of the cab for now. Now, when it comes to the transmission, you're going to have clutch issues. So, I think my slave cylinder doesn't work, so right now the clutch does not work. So this is still under investigation, this part. But what I did is I left the internal one in. Now, if you take a clutch slave cylinder from, I think it's 87 up, standard, it fits into the line. Now you just punch out the little pin, put in the line, put the pin back in. And there's no messing around really, other than making your line run nicely. Also, with dealing with the clutch, is you're going to want to use everything 2004 Chev 2-wheel drive 4.8 with the standard. Clutch, pressure plate, pilot bearing, it all fits perfect. Flywheel too. So, that being said, if you want to LS swap your S10, hopefully you learned a couple things, save you half a dozen trips to the junkyard instead of 500 trips like I did. Learning good, bad, buying crap that you didn't need, getting it home and then, well, it doesn't work. For now, that should get you started. If you guys want to use my ideas, don't use them. Maybe you think something worked better for you. I originally was going to make this into a series of little pieces here and there, steps as I went. But, you know, not making any money off this, and I got to get these things done, so sometimes I don't film everything or I just don't have time to add them in. So, hopefully you guys learned something. Like, subscribe. If you have questions, ask, pass it on, share, and yeah, for now, take her easy, and we'll talk to you guys again. Bye.